office. So like we moved in. I haven't done anything with mine yet because I just haven't figured out what I want to do. But okay, you look at all those books. Have you read all of those books?
Some of them twice, and some of them not. Some of them not at all, not at all. But
Would you
I got a few of them back there that are pretty good. But yeah, when I want to do something like this and look smart, I figured the degrees and the books that helps the cause. That way, if I say something stupid, I still got a backdrop that makes me look smart. So
that does help. What kind of books do you enjoy reading the most?
Man, I read a lot. I have read, so with seminary, you read a lot of theology, you read a lot of biographies, you read a lot of commentaries, and I like to read current event stuff too. But I've learned that like for every 3 or 4 books that I'll read, if I read like a biography or an autobiography, and then I read something heavy like spiritual development stuff, theological stuff, I gotta balance it out with like a good murder mystery novel.
Oh, really?
I just gotta, yeah. Oh man, yeah. Like I gotta balance it out. But I've also learned that like if you communicate for a living, it's really, really helpful to learn how to tell a story from other people who tell a story, And so like there's some novels that I like to check out just to check out. But
yeah, what's your favorite book? I mean, outside of the Bible, because I mean you have to say that's the answer, right?
It's the go-to, man. Let's
hear like your favorite maybe like religious text other than the Bible and just agnostic of religion, just anything else.
So like beyond the Bible, faith wise, not faith wise, anything at all. Is that what you're asking?
Uh-huh.
There's some classics that I like. There's one. This is like any old school pastor that has like a name that's just 2 letters. I don't know where like if it came like if it was to say where you grew up, but it was these old guys with like AW. RRLL, like first names that were just 2 letters, Yeah. Anything they write's always going to be really good, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a book called by this guy named A.W. Tozer, The Pursuit of God and Practicing the Presence of God. There's a couple of them, but they are just like classics. And I got handed those when I was in Bible college because they're really thin books. They're not dense, but they're just really, 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 really good. And then yeah, like those are kind of, and then there's one other that when, not to jump ahead in the conversation, but when we were stationed together at Tyndall, down in Florida years and years ago, I got a hold of by a guy named Brennan Manning. That was, it's faith, but it's all about grace. And I just remember sitting on the beach at Tyndall Air Force Base reading it, and it changed my life. And so it was just like that. It's still got it on the shelf over there. Yeah, but it's just fantastic. Yeah. And then there are some history gurus that I like to just because I am a history nut, that I like to check out their stuff whenever they come out with something new. But yeah, I'm kind of always looking for new stuff to read. It's kind of a little bit of a problem.
Yeah. My desire to read definitely ebbs and flows. There was a stint a couple of years ago where I just dove into all of C.S. Lewis's nonfiction stuff. And some of them are definitely more difficult to read just because it's old English and it's British English versus American. So, but they were all really, really good. I can't say that I've ever been drawn. I don't like motivational books, like leadership type books. But I'm trying to force myself to read fiction. And how I do that is when I read to my girls. So for the past couple of years, I've been reading them like American classics, stuff that I think some kids read in school growing up. I didn't do any homework in school. You know what I mean? Like I was just able to make it through pretty well just by doing well on tests. So like a lot of the books that I was probably told to read, I just never opened the books. So I can't say that I necessarily enjoy the fiction stuff yet, but I do enjoy how watching them respond to it. So like right now we're reading the original Wizard of Oz, and
oh wow, okay,
like I'm reading it to them, and they're just cracking up the whole time. You know what I mean? So that's really cool. I've at the beginning of the year, not a New Year's resolution, but I kind of I told my wife, I said, I think I want to read like The Count of Monte Cristo, mainly just because it's a really big novel, you know. But there's some of those books like that I say that I'm going to do it. I just haven't done it yet. I wish I was as heavy of a reader as a lot of other people like you, but it's just I don't know why. It's just always been something that's never been an important part of my life, you know.
Yeah, I think for me, like it took. I think Bible college when I made my way to Bible college, it was like I realized how much of a like I love to learn. But I'm not unlike you. Like I did homework in school, but I picked up a lot of, especially like, you know, the American history things, the basic, you know, whether it was home ec or whether it was shop or whether it was American government. Like I just kind of picked up a lot of that by the home that I was in, my family I was part of. And so I didn't have to like kind of sink my teeth into the books that we were assigned, or I could just kind of like figure it out. But I love to read, and I've got a 7-year-old that we have yet to introduce much fiction. One of the things that I appreciate that my wife has been intentional about doing is these, they're very similar to the old, like, I think they're called the Little Gold Books, that were, when I was a kid, were series that you could collect. And they're still out there, but they have done a great job with short bios of different historical characters. Mm-hmm. Not all fate, but you know, some of American history. With the 250th anniversary of the country, they've got a lot of them out right now too. So it's been helpful to kind of just, with my 7-year-old, kind of pull her up and kind of walk through with some cool imaging and short stories to talk about people that are in history that, you know, she will learn about in a history class, but it's just kind of fun to see her learn about those folks as a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And I'd love to learn to read too.
Yeah. My oldest loves to read, which is really cool. I think actually when I was her age, I did too. But something changed in me where it no longer became fun or interesting. But I'm really hopeful that she holds on to that. And my youngest, she's now becoming a better reader. I think she's starting to not just read to get through it. I think she's actually reading and being able to recall what she's read and stuff like that. So that stuff like that is really cool to see. What's your favorite movie?
Oh man, that's a good question. So it feels like cliche because I'm a chaplain in the Air Force, but like I have always loved The Patriot. I've loved The Patriot. It's a close 1 and 2, and some of this is aging me answering this, but it's still like the Gladiator and The Patriot. Yeah, like they both make me cry.
That's
like
funny.
a cries of Patriot, yeah, no, but like, yeah. Of course. But yeah, I love both of those movies. I when I met my now wife, we were yet to be married, and it was the 4th of July. We're in DC, and I was like, we're gonna go watch the fireworks, and like we'll watch The Patriot. And she was like, I've never seen The Patriot. I was like, you communist. You've never seen So we now own The Patriot. But yeah, it's a great movie. And then Gladiator. And then until probably Gladiator came out, it was Rocky IV, which is still up there.
Oh, yeah. So, man, that made everybody want to do steroids. Rocky IV.
So, yeah, whenever you want to, like, take a hill, man, like, do any challenge whatsoever, you cannot go wrong with Rocky IV, even just the soundtrack.
Yeah, I've talked about this on a previous episode, but The Patriot, when I was deployed in 2017, I was attached to a British a soft team, basically their version of our SEALs. And we had a team room that was mainly just used for hanging out. It had some couches and like a big TV and stuff like that. But we would also do like mission briefings and stuff in there as well. But anytime we had a meeting just beforehand, I would go in there and I'd put The Patriot on just to remind them that we kicked their asses a couple hundred years ago.
Your butt just 200 years ago. Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah.
I used to give them a hard time because they wore a lot of like military style, like U.S. manufactured T-shirts, like like the Article 15 shirts, like all those things. And they always had like the American flag. And I'm like, do you see me wearing the British the UK flag on my sleeve? There's no shot. But it's just fun.
And they knew deep down, you're right. Like
I'm right.
That
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, dude. First of all, thank you for doing this. I know we had a snafu last week. That was definitely my fault. Different time zones and not thinking about it. So, for anybody that watches this, this is my friend Andy Lloyd. He and I were stationed together in Panama City, Florida. Both of our first assignments in the Air Force. The reason, Andy, like why I wanted to do an episode with you. Is there's multiple reasons, but some of them you may know, some of them you may not know. For me, you were really impactful on the trajectory of my career as an A1C, and like kind of really changed what could have been maybe a mediocre Air Force career. And that's primarily because you were the first like real example of like excellence that I saw. Your face is frozen, but maybe you're still there. So I remember meeting you. We'll talk about that. I'll probably have you dive into that when we talk about it. But I just remember you had the flat top going on. The first time I saw you in uniform, we still wore BDUs, like the tightest crease I've ever seen.
Creases, yes.
The patrol cap was like perfectly blocked. You had the cuffs in like the bottoms of your pants, or just around the boots, like the shiny boots. And so for me, it was really weird because we weren't that far apart in age, but there was definitely a big gap in maturity between you and me. There honestly probably still is. But I remember some of the things that you were doing, and we'll get into that. I wasn't there yet to where I was willing to do anything beyond just show up to work, do my job, and leave. But for you were the first and one of the few examples throughout my career of somebody who was just set the bar really high. And so I want to thank you for that. You may not have realized how much of an impact that had on me in my career, but it did. So thanks for setting an example for me without even potentially realizing it. So it makes the most sense. Let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about what was your upbringing like? Where were you raised? Describe your childhood.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that, man. That means a lot. Those were some fun times in Panama City. And it feels like a long time ago, and then it also feels like yesterday. So but thanks. It means a lot. I was raised in a little town just north of Atlanta called Rome, Georgia. Just between Atlanta and Chattanooga, Tennessee, and grew up there my whole life. Went off to, I graduated high school. Whole family was there, not from a military family at all. And went to Bible college after high school in 2001. And then, the world kind of changed the latter part of 2001. And I was looking at this ministry thing because I'd always kind of felt like I wanted to do that in some capacity, like church work. I grew up in that, and I loved it and loved the people. That was kind of my tribe, for lack of a better term. And then went to Bible college, finished Bible college right after that happened in September of 2001. And then, I knew that my education was a big priority. A lot of the things that I wanted to do, but I didn't really know how. And then ended up kind of finding the mall recruiter and had I think a red door, a green door, and a blue door. And blue's my favorite color, so I went through that door. And and a lot of the things that I wanted to do, they, without trying to sell me on anything or insulting me, kind of gave me some options to help achieve some short and long-term goals. And so I signed up, went off, and knew that I want to be far from home, but not too far from home. So I ended up, and I joked that I knew I would see sand enlisting in the military after 9/11, but then they sent me to Panama City, Florida. So I saw
White
spring
sand.
break sand for 3 years. Right. And, we did deploy when we were there. So we saw Middle Eastern sand, but while we were there, we were guarding some white Gulf Coast sand for 3 years. And, so then, you want me to keep going up to what brought me to DC?
No. So Bible college. Why Bible college? What made you feel? What drew you to that?
Oh man, like the two things. One is I had a desire to see the world outside of the town that I'm from. Love where I'm from, but I just wanted to see a little bit more of the country outside of the town I was from. And two is I did not know if I had good enough grades to get into some of the better colleges that were around my area. And it was 2 years; it was not 4. So, like, if I had a short-term opportunity in the near future, I could take it after 2 years. I realized that I needed to continue on and finish, the education. But it opened up my schedule for me after 2 years to be able to go into the Air Force for sure. But that was the initial reason. It was kind of grew up in an environment that valued education, but really didn't necessarily know how to coach a young guy into a path that made the most sense for him. I don't think I was really exposed to anything like that until I joined the military. And then, parents who wanted what was great for you, supported you in whatever you were pursuing, but you kind of realized that their ability to help navigate your trajectory kind of plateaued at a certain point. And that's fine. They just became incredible friends and cheerleaders. But you realize, it's either going to be you Googling late at night options out there, or you need to find some mentors and put yourself in an environment where people have nothing to gain out of watching you fail. And I found that in the military for sure. But that was initially the reason behind Bible college. Like I said, I knew my grades were not great, but I love the Lord and kind of wanted to go see what that was all about before I went off to seminary or whatever, and eventually found my way there too.
Yeah. How did your family react to you joining?
Dad celebrated it. Mom cried.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. It was. Yeah, I remember that. And I grew up in a very people joke about it being the deep South, the buckle of the Bible Belt, all that. And I remember going off to actually in process, enlist, do the contract, do the oath, all that you do, the physical and all that. And it's like an entire day that you go away and do that and come back. And everybody's like, what job did you get? Did you actually join for 4 years, 6 years? And the next Sunday was at our large church we were part of was like the 4th of July Sunday. So everybody was in this, patriotic mood. And Andy had just joined the Air Force and is going to go capture Osama bin Laden by himself, Yeah. So it was that. It was that. Like
you weren't on the bin Laden raid.
Oh, yeah.
Keep that between us.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they were super, super proud, and I think they still are all these years later. But yeah, it was. I think my dad, deep down, he's no longer with us, but always he barely avoided the draft, right? During the Vietnam. And I think there was a little bit of, I didn't recognize it at the time, but I think there was a little bit of, wishing he could go with me. A little like, reliving some of those days for himself and, could not be more proud. And that showed up when they came to various events when we were together at Tyndall and then later in life too. But yeah, they were very proud. I think my mom, it was funny because you just don't know what you don't know about the military when you're not from a family that's in that culture, And a few years into it, she realized the opportunities that I was being given and the sky's the limit, and be a part of a team and all the things that you hear, and then some of the things you don't, but the things you're getting to be able to be a part of. And she has since kind of come around. 20 years later, she's come around.
Yeah, I think specifically at that time in the early 2000s, and probably even later, people that did not have direct military experience, I think when they just hear that somebody is in the military, they think that everybody is just like, there's the concept of like war fighter, but then there's people that are actually like fighting wars, like actually doing that stuff. And I do think that there's a lot of people don't really understand there's so much more to the military than that. And while that stuff may sound cool, there are equally as jobs. There are jobs that are just as cool that aren't actually involved in like pulling a trigger or anything like that. And there's so many opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And just as important. They play just as much of a huge role in the execution of those things downrange. But I saw that too. I remember after I joined, I would go home, and it's just like people were like, people want to thank you for your service, and that's cool, that's great, and people would want to like talk to me about like Iraq and Afghanistan, and at the time I'm like, they're doing stuff over there.
It looks like it's hot and not fun. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. What was basic training like for you?
Oh man, I went to basic training. So I enlisted when I just said kind of the July timeframe is when I actually kind of like made the decision, but I asked, trying to be strategic. I asked for this program that they had at the time called delayed entry, which is basically one day you sign up, but you kind of set a further date in the future when you actually go away to basic training. So I'm like, in the Air Force, we only send people to San Antonio, Texas. It's hot down there in the summer. I don't want to go down there when it's hot in the summer. So I was like, we'll just aim for, the 1st of September. So they took that, went away, came back, and they were like, you're going, I think it was 17 or 18 December. So I'm going to basic training at Christmas. So what I remember about basic training was being picked up and screamed at by this civilian wearing a Santa Claus hat, driving us to our playing on the bus Jingle Bells. And they were screaming at us with Jingle Bells playing in the background while we were having to like get off and like in process. And then I spent Christmas Day shaving socks with a Bic razor and folding underwear with tweezers. That's what I remember about. Yeah. And then, aside from that nonsense, I remember, some of it is just the cliche, because it isn't a cliche. Like you just meet people from like all over the country that are like, I remember, I will never forget this. I live in Northern Virginia in the DC area now, and I had never heard the accent. And this is a Georgia accent, like we've already established where I grew up. But I had never heard the Maryland, Baltimore dialect like this. Mm-hmm. It's just very different. And I had to ask a guy like 5 times where Merlin was, because he was saying Maryland, where he was from, and I had no idea where that was. And I'm like, is there a city nearby? Like where? So like, and he was like, you're slow in Georgia, aren't you? But finding people's stories and getting to know stories and doing something that was that, I just come out of Bible college, so it wasn't like we had been in stressful environments quite like that,
Yeah.
And so, I remember beyond all of the yelling and the silliness, you ask about my parents. I remember them coming out of graduation, how proud they were for that.
Yeah.
And then those gigantic glasses they gave us. I remember that too.
Yeah, I remember seeing those glasses. I'm glad I didn't have those. But dude,
yeah.
I totally forgot about the sock shaving. The basic training back then was really easily, I don't even feel like I'm exaggerating, 50% of it was just getting your drawer of clothing and stuff as perfect as you possibly could. And at the time, even that, it was is there important? I understand what they were trying to instill in us. I get it, but there was definitely a lot of wasted time doing stuff like that. I forgot about it because I remember somebody next to me that was shaving because it was the wool socks. It was specifically the wool socks you had to shave, and I remember he shaved it so much that he shaved a hole in it, and he was freaked out. He was like, he was like, "What do I do?" I'm like,
no, you can't order it on Amazon. That was before that existed. But yeah. Oh, and I remember the phone booths. There was these old school, like 1980s phone booths that we had to use calling cards to call home. Like, I don't even know how they do that now. I'm sure that's totally different.
Cell phones. Even when I was training. Yeah, even when I was a recruiter, they didn't. The phone booths were like getting phased out. Now these kids, I think they get their cell phones periodically to be able to make contact with their family. But yeah, I remember that. I remember the first phone call home. Remember, like, they take you down there, and you've got like 15 seconds to say, like, I'm alive.
I'm alive. Yeah. I made it out here. I'm alive. We're good. I'll talk to you whenever I can. Bye. It's crazy. I remember oh yeah. So again, just coming out of Bible college, and it's like the first night, like the very, very first night. They start doling out jobs, right? They start like, and you don't know what any, like different jobs, but one of them was the chapel guide, and it was the guy, or like usually a male and a female, would get up and be like the flights that your group, their point of contact for church on Sunday morning. And I was the first to raise my hand, and they were like, "Lloyd, you." They didn't even know my name at the time, and I was like, I grew up in church. I just graduated from Bible college. I love the Lord. And they were like, "Sit down. You're the chapel guy." I'm like, great, praise the Lord. But like that was my like saving grace. And then not just shortly after that, they called like I will never forget this. We had one of our instructors was Staff Sergeant Parvelis, giant guy, and when they called you, you have to say, "Proceeding, sir," and announce you're headed their way, right? And he had a question for me, but I was so nervous to speak to anybody. So I'm standing there, you report in, and I'm standing there, my hands are just shaking. And he gets really close to me, and I see that he's looking at my hands, and it dawns on me that Staff Sergeant Parvelis doesn't know if Lloyd is about to swing on him, but I can't stop my hands. He was like, "Are you about to swing on me, Lloyd?" I'm like, "No, for the love of the Lord, no, I'm not going to swing on you. Don't kill me, please." Yeah. Night one. That was night one.
That's funny. So even though you would have went through, you were in your early 20s, I'm assuming,
or just around. I would have been 20. Yeah, 19
so, 20. You still would have been one of the older guys probably in the group. I mean, there's
at that time, I think it capped out at 33, and we had some guys who were part of the bands, the Air Force bands, so they were a little older, like they were highly educated in instruments and things like that. So they were a little bit older, but I mean it ranges, like at least back then it was like 17 all the way up to 33, I guess 32, early 30s. But I was kind of right in the middle.
Yeah. When I was a recruiter, I remember I enlisted a kid. I say a kid. At the time, he was older than me. He was a professor at the University of Illinois, taught the French horn, and he came in as an E6. He put on E6 before graduating, basically not right away, but like right in like that week or two prior to graduation, where like something you promote. And I remember him coming back on delayed entry, and he was like, I was higher ranking than my drill instructor.
Then your drill team, yeah. No, that's true. And they like where with what I do now, we work around those folks, and they show up as a tech, and that's foundational. And then they promote all the way to chief, and it's a great career, but they have some incredible education.
Yeah. So you went to basic training. You got to Tyndall. You went through the tech school. You got to Tyndall. You were there for a few months before I showed up.
Right.
Describe our first night meeting.
Yeah, so I was like your sponsor, and they told me, I remember a couple of things. One, I was like super excited because at the time there were no other airmen, there were no other junior enlisted folks in the office. I was like one of the, like, if not the first, the second, and then we were getting over the next couple of years a lot more. But you were right after me. I was like, great, that's exciting. And then they were like, in my experience onboarding, we had some great guys that we worked with, some great people that had been in for a long time, but they were probably not, it was just kind of like jumping onto a speeding train, right? So it's helpful to have somebody when you're brand new show you around. Mm-hmm. And it took a minute to realize that. So anyway, I wanted to do that for you. So anyway, you showed up, and I was like, let's go to dinner. It's Panama City, Florida. So like, let's go over to the beach and go get something to eat, and just kind of get to know each other. And I think you were either in a hotel for that night, early night, or I don't remember if you were yet in the dorms.
No,
I don't remember. Probably not. But anyway, we went over to a restaurant that had, seafood place that had a TV going on, and it was a Sunday when you rolled into town, and it happened to be Super Bowl Sunday. So I'm like, let's go, I don't have a party or anything I'm going to, let's go get food. So we were sitting there, and the Super Bowl halftime show came on while we were sitting there, and it happened to be, I don't remember the date, you probably do, but the show, I certainly remember. It was Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson's halftime show. And so our inaugural meal involved getting an intimate, along with the rest of the world, exposure show from Janet Jackson. The malfunction, the costume malfunction happened while we were hanging out for the first time.
Yeah, I remember we met at Applebee's there. I think it's technically like Callaway or whatever, right across from Walmart. And we went.
Yes, that's where you were parked when I rolled up. Yeah.
And we went to Hammerhead Fred's, and it's funny that I won a hat. I won a hat for something, or they gave me a hat. As a Miller Lite, blue, like navy blue ball cap. I still have that hat, and I wore it. Yeah, and I wore it often in Afghanistan and stuff. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's one of the few hats I've only got.
That's great.
I've got 2 hats, 3 hats that actually, how you buy a ball cap sometimes they don't fit your head right. Sometimes they're like too tall or whatever. This one for some reason just still fits like a glove. So I just can't.
Really?
I just can't. So
I've got. You took it with you to Afghanistan.
Yeah. So I've got a memento from our first meeting. Yeah, that was funny. Right? You definitely turned all different shades of red that night.
Well, then I felt bad because you were like waiting on me at Applebee's. I don't remember why. I don't remember why it was church or what. I don't remember. But I remember you beat me there. And then I was like, man, this guy's going to be like ticked off at me. I don't know him. And then, I get dinner and Janet Jackson's,
Yeah, Tyndall was great. Like you said, we were a part of an interesting flight where it was basically me and you for a long time. We had Maria, who was a senior airman that I think was just putting on staff. It was my supervisor,
but on staff,
but she was getting ready to leave. But we had in the job that we were in. Dude, we were in the greatest spot ever. One, Marty was such a fun guy to work for. But then you had Chuck, and you had Mac, and you had even McConnell, who I think kind of rubbed people the wrong way.
Drive me nuts.
Yeah, Mr. Ostrike, I think that's how you said his name. And then even when Dennis showed up and stuff like that, we just had a lot of people that in the career field that we were a part of that were just kind of like really well respected and like OGs,
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah.
And so being just basically steps away from, at the time it was called AFCISA, but like the functional manager, and just get kind of past getting to rub elbows with people that were really important was really cool. We definitely lucked out there.
Yeah, and it was and I mean, even like our squadron leadership, like that particular, the base was a lot different now. Of course, it had a storm that did a lot of damage to it, but it felt like a small community. Even the first sergeant, like retired, took a GS position, and he's still there, I think. But it was just like a lot of people that were looking out for you, wanted the best for you, and you don't find that everywhere.
My two greatest accomplishments at Tyndall Air Force Base. One, I'm the one that took the crash call when the F-15 crashed over in Apalachicola.
No way, really?
I remember I was eating lunch at my desk. You know how they would call just in-flight emergencies, stuff like that. I take the call. The phone was at my desk for whatever reason, and I remember listening to it, and I went into Marty's office and I was like, "Hey, I got this weird call. Don't these planes have autopilot?" and he looked at me like I was the biggest idiot in the world, and he's like, in like the greatest like northern Florida like Gulf like southern accent, he's like, "It's time to go to work." I was like, "What am I? I don't know what that means."
Time to go to work.
But then I remember one open ranks. So we had prime beef day once over on the operational side, on the flight line side. We were all formed up, and I remember I got the first sergeant's sharp troop of the quarter. And
look at you,
and I beat you out for it. So like, for me, I was like, "Oh man, I am now at a different level." I beat everybody in the squadron for having the best uniform. Because I remember being up that night, like stay flowing the uniform to where like it would just stand up on its own. There's so much starch in it.
I miss that stuff, man. I'm so miss doing that. Yes, like it was ridiculous, but it was like we're cardboard.
Mop and glow on the boots, like trying to walk as carefully as you can. It was. Oh,
and if somebody like scuffed your boots, you wanted to like break their nose, man.
Yeah, let's fight.
Like what? Watch where you're walking.
Yeah.
Yes.
But at some point, it may have actually been while I was deployed, but either way, you PCS'd. So let's talk about your transition out of emergency management.
Yeah, man, I miss those days. But I got so I deployed 06, early 06, and as soon as I got back, I got selected for a special duty assignment in the DC area. I came up here to join the Air Force Honor Guard here at Bowling Air Force Base in 06, and then served there for 3.5 years. We're doing all the funerals at Arlington and ceremonies around DC and, sporting events and all that stuff, and did that until 2009 before I separated to go to seminary.
What was school like for the Honor Guard?
I was told that it was going to be different for somebody that came in with a little bit, like I had done base honor guard at Tyndall, which I remember, like, you kind of paint a pretty vivid picture of kind of how much, well, I thought I was the stuff sometimes. Like I tell people to date, like when I went from Airman First Class to my third stripe or being Senior Airman Lloyd, I came to work and you could not tell me nothing. I was Mr. Air Force that day, man. I was like so pumped. But I was on base honor guard. Oh, thank you. So anyway, that's me as chaplain. Yeah. That's me as a chaplain. But anyway, I did base honor guard. When I came to the Air Force Honor Guard, I wore my little emblem on my uniform for the Tyndall Base Honor Guard. And when I got here, they were like, "It's great. Where you coming from? It's great. Well, like, this is not Tyndall Base Honor Guard. You need to take that off." And so, like, my day one in the squadron, they made me take off my Base Honor Guard cookie and put it on the desk and never put it back on. Yeah. And then I had to begin an 8-week. Again, we were told it was a little bit different for people that lived off base, people that PCSing with, like, not from basic training, but from another career field. And it was 8 weeks of basic training all over again. It was 4:30 marching, like, whatever the PT standards were at the time, kind of times it by 2 because they wanted to just make sure you were throwing up or whatever. And yeah, it was basic training all over again. The whole locker thing, like your job, like it was, I think 3 times a day you had open ranks inspections with people coming and inspecting everything. After lunch, you would re-iron your uniform and be re-inspected after sweating and running around in it. And it was, at the time, it was still BDUs. It was what you and I were wearing. I transitioned while I was in the unit, but for the honor guard or for the tech school, it was all the same stuff that you were talking about. And so it was 8 weeks of that. And then finding an apartment in DC, adjusting to life up here from Tyndall. Yeah, it was different. It was very, very, very different.
Because I don't know much about that side of things, but there are different, you can serve in the honor guard in different capacities, right? Kind of doing different things. Was there like an internal, were there rivalries between like the different flavors of honor guard folks?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's like, there still is. There still is. What you showed on the screen is well beyond what we're talking about right now. It was after I commissioned and became a chaplain, and then they brought me back out to Arlington. Is where I am now. But so I work around all those young airmen, which is pretty wild and incredible. It's incredible to be able to like do what I'm getting to do, but to know what their world is like also. And they, appreciate that too. But yes, there are like, after you join, they put you in basically just the rotation of what they call ceremonial flight, which is you're like a 18-member flight that supports the funerals at Arlington, and you're just you're marching like kind of in a parade, what you see in movies. And then you have the opportunity, you're farmed out to different, like the firing party, the body bearers that you see when a president passes or something like that, and the color guard. That's what I was on. And so I got to
the color guard.
The color guard, carry the American flag. So
okay.
I got to, I got to do some pretty incredible. Like aside from the funerals at Arlington, I got to went down to did several Nationals games, the baseball team here in DC, Orioles games, Redskins at the time, and then they sent me TDY to the Daytona 500 to do a color guard for that. So it was pretty incredible opportunity. And then but it's very, very competitive. Even amongst the people who were in the individual flights, they're motivating each other, but they're motivating and competing with each other with more qualifications to do more things. And it's just the nature of the job. But it was fun. I mean, it kind of pushed me to I'd never really worked or been around an environment like that. A lot of it is like, a competitive sports team. And you can tell some folks who have been in that environment and some who are struggling to adjust to it. But those who lean on their team really thrive there. And it's a bubble, so it's a high pressure job, but it's fun. I'm glad I got the opportunity to do that for sure.
Is there any like drill and ceremony thing that sticks out in your mind where you messed up that still like haunts you to this day?
Well, I did 2 funerals, large services out, and I do 3 on Monday. I don't ever do that without being a little bit nervous. Like I always tell people, like, if I ever do that and I show up and I'm not nervous, I don't want to do it anymore. Like there's always a little bit of like, because I'm not like, subject to my nerves. Like I can push through that but it's, it's just too important to be like comfortable. But to answer your question, I mean, there are countless opportunities I've messed up, but the one that early on that sticks out was, the first time, or one of the first times that I qualified to carry the American flag in a funeral and a service. And, you have to call certain commands when you're when you're carrying that particular flag. Their position has a name, but when you're carrying the American flag, you're responsible for calling some commands. Well, my time came to do that. And about the time we were holding the flag, ready to like turn to march off after the service, the flag wrapped around my head in a big gust of wind. So all I could see was a red stripe. and we were surrounded by all these iconic knee-high headstones. And so I was freaking out because I was like, okay, I'm going to be the guy on YouTube carrying the American flag that trips over a headstone and lands on the American flag. And everybody, even like the kids out here, know the flag's not supposed to touch the ground.
Yeah.
And so luckily, because they trained us pretty well, there's like basically a help command where we're all like squeezed together, and the guy carrying the Air Force flag takes command because he can see where you're going until the flag gets out of your face. But it was like the one thing that I worked so hard for to be able to do out here becomes the obstacle that's blinding me, and I'm going to trip over a headstone while I'm out here, thinking I'm hot stuff. Mm-hmm. I remember the sheer panic of that. But there were some pretty epic mess ups. Some of them are less noticeable to families, but there's always one of the things about that job, even what I do now. Every time you honor a veteran, every single time, the honor guard will go huddle up the people who are in charge of every component and have a meeting by the bus to talk about what can be done better the next time. It's like baked into the culture to improve upon. And that's just rare. You don't see that everywhere with that much pride. It was one job that I've ever had where I remember doing a ceremony with an NCO. I'll never forget his name. We'll never forget his face. And the Air Force Memorial was pretty new at the time. But he messed up and he got on the bus, and I don't even remember what he did. I don't remember. I was in just part of the ceremony, but he got on the bus in the aisle of a big charter bus full of young airmen and wept, apologizing because of something that he had done that had to be compensated for to make sure the dignity of the ceremony was on point. But I just never had seen anybody care that much. And so I carry that with me now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things that I I wasn't exposed to either until I cross-trained into the job that I had towards the back half of my career, where tough, candid feedback was just the way of life. You know what I mean? You would execute a training mission, whatever that was, to the best of your ability, and you knew driving back to the squadron, you were about to get raked over the coals, whether you feel like you did well or not. There were people that were observing that were going to find every little thing you did wrong. And so that definitely does require like a lot of humility to like check your ego, accept the mistakes that you made, even if you have a reason to like justify in your mind why it occurred. So that was another part when I started to get exposed to that in my career. That's something I still carry with me now in my current role. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to make anybody feel bad. You know what I mean? But there's nothing wrong with telling somebody like, hey man, like you messed this up. Like, let's figure out why. And so it doesn't happen again. That definitely is a rare thing. It's not a something that happens in every job in the Air Force.
No.
So you did the honor guard thing for a while. At what point did you transition to be a chaplain?
So I stepped away from the honor guard, stepped away from the Air Force. I separated in 2009, fall of that year, and completed my education. Joined staff not terribly long after that at a church that I was a part of in Northern Virginia. And that was originally intended to get experience, to gain some practical ministry experience on the path to becoming a chaplain. I became a chaplain 10 years after that. So it was a little bit of a delay. But the church grew and my role grew, and I met my wife there and married her, and we settled down. And so then by 2018, I commissioned in, direct commissioned as a reservist. Yeah, and so I became a chaplain. I always kind of had the idea, like I said, while I was on staff and helping build the church and pastor people there, that I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But that it was kind of just the education requirement for one is pretty lengthy. So I worked full time at a church while I was going to seminary full time, which is not easy to do. But that's a pretty lengthy. That was that in and of itself is about 3 years, and then I commissioned and then was still on staff at the church and doing the 24 days a year as a reservist. And then in 2020, forgive me, 2022, they had a manning shortage at Arlington. I had been traveling down to Langley Air Force Base here in Virginia for, again, 24 days a year doing my commitment as a reservist, but they had a need here in Arlington. And it had been a goal once I became a chaplain to always go back to Arlington after doing that honor guard thing, doing the honor guard for years. And then they expressed a need, brought me out there. And that coincided with me stepping away from the church full time. So I was able to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I think I've asked you this first part before, but I unfortunately, I don't remember your answer. Did you ever feel like a moment that you were called to ministry, and what was seminary like?
Yeah. Yes to the first question. I think, like, for me, and again, like I don't know a magic like aha moment. I just remember as a young kid, as young as like 10, 11 years old, having men in my life and women too, but specifically leaders in our church that were men that I held in on two things. One, I personally held in a high regard, and I watched my dad hold in a high regard. So I just understood, like, wow, it's not about power or control or anything like that. It's just that they have so much influence over people that are doing things Monday through Friday that are so different from what, because my dad was a blue collar, he was a Teamster, he was a utility guy, hardest working person I've ever known. Great, one of the greatest people I've ever known. But I was not going to be building gas meters for a living. You don't want to be doing that. But to be able to watch like him look to people that could speak into life, and that just had like really tangible benefit to our family. And so I was like, I want to do that. I didn't know the words. I was 11, but I knew that I just felt the nudge to do that. So I didn't have any idea what that would look like even through high school. Like, I wasn't a good kid, but I knew that I wanted to kind of do that. I was always trying to finagle those career choice tests that you take in high school to figure out how to, like, all right, I needed to be extroverted and I needed to be in front of people and communication so that it comes out telling me that I should be a pastor.
Yeah.
And then seminary was, it was hard. It was hard. It was hands down one of the hardest things that I have ever done. And not just because I worked full time while I did it, but it was just hard. Like it was so rewarding and so fascinating. And people that go to seminary are going for multitudes of different reasons. I mean, there's just a lot of different reasons that people end up going there, but it was great. Like it really, I think there are things that, I didn't like and had to be okay with that. I had to figure out that, like, okay, they're trying to figure out answers to questions really nobody's asking in the worlds I'm a part of. And you've got other people who are ivory tower-esque, and then you got other people who are trying to gather this or from this experience and go out and help lead people in the local church and for the Lord. So it was great.
What were some of those topics that you were just talking about?
I remember going into a class one time, and it was a class, and my wife still makes fun of me for taking. There's a handful of electives that you can take, like any program in grad school, and I just really wanted to take some of the most like kind of wild classes that like I probably wouldn't have a chance to otherwise, So I took one on angels and demons.
Ooh.
And
Yeah,
it was. But I remember going into class one day, and there were two individuals and over the course of the day or the time that we were together, um, elevated from a disagreement to a full-on shouting match on something as like trivial as what purification rituals look like in Second Temple Jerusalem. And it was just like, okay, no one that I know is going to willingly be influenced by you.
Yeah.
You're irrelevant. You are what people despise about seminary.
Yeah.
You're passionate about the topic, but and then there were just people that would gravitate like that to topics like that, and so that was one example. It was great, but it was just there. You had to realize that everybody there is not like that. That those people had things that they knew about the topic that were interesting, and I took the class, so
a couple of years ago, my wife wasn't happy about it, but I went down. I don't want to say I went down a rabbit hole, but my YouTube algorithm definitely made a change, and I just like, oh, this looks good. There was probably about a 6-month stint where I was just heavily invested in watching interviews with exorcists, primarily from the Catholic Church. I mean, I grew up Protestant. I'm Protestant now. I think you are as well.
Yes.
So hearing it from like the Catholic perspective, one for me is very interesting. It's much different than the concept of exorcism that I was talked to about, growing up and stuff like that. But there are some things that I do find really admirable about the Catholic Church. One, I think I really like how when you go into a Catholic church, you're in a holy place, and there's a reverence with a lot of the stuff, with virtually everything that they do. I remember growing up, I thought it was really off-putting, but it's just something about it now that I do find kind of attractive. Their use of relics and ceremonies and stuff like that, even in exorcisms, is just something that I don't know which camp I fall in. Like I'm sure they're probably both. I just find it both ways different, but they are so drastically different. Let's talk just specifically. You're talking about like demonic possession. If you go to a church like I grew up in, there is going to be a much different outlook and process to how they deal with that. And the Catholic, and the Catholic Church, it could not be more opposite. And so I just find it really interesting that, and even I went down my algorithm took me down the rabbit hole of near death experiences.
Oh wow!
And so all that stuff to me, I just think is really interesting, mainly because I don't know the answer. I don't know if there is a right answer. I'm sure there is.
Sure.
But it's just really really interesting. I wish that I had a chance to take a class like that.
No, it's fascinating. I think I'm envious of your algorithms on YouTube. Mine are pretty all over the place too. But it's a lot of what you're describing with some Office and Parks and Rec mixed in. Yeah. But I love. There's so much. If you ask a Catholic like what camp you're in, they would probably tell you you're still Catholic because you're in the faith community. But you're what you're describing. I appreciate about them too, like a lot. Like you. Mm-hmm. They do so much in the way of they call it catechism, but a young child is grown up in faith and surrounded by community, and like if it's regardless of where it occurs in the world, it's always it's the time tested way that they kind of in the healthiest of ways indoctrinate you and help you develop a foundation of your faith. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Protestants, there are hundreds of different denominational isms and breakdowns of different denominations, but we kind of sometimes when it comes to the most basic of things, whether it's something as basic as trying to teach the Bible to a kid or something as heavy as what you're talking about, influence and possession by demons. We kind of reinvent the wheel, or want to, every time. Yeah. And I think there's a lot we can learn from the time-tested ways they've done it on the Catholic side.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something about the idea of I guess what people would call it like high church.
Sure.
That I do think is really it's just something I've never experienced. So I do find a lot of it really, really interesting. What has there been anything that you remember learning as a child, specifically like around your faith, that now, as you've learned more and experienced more, and that your view on things has shifted at all?
Oh, that shifted. Yeah. I mean, I think so. I grew up as a young kid, came to Christ, came to faith in a pretty traditional Southern Baptist environment. Again, it's deep South. And then when I was about 15 years old, we started attending charismatic Pentecostal church. It's a great church, great people. But you do not, at that church at that time, I can't speak for it now, like every church, whether it's a liturgical high church or whether it's a wearing flip-flops church, right? They all have their liturgy. They all have their way of doing things. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you really develop in your faith and your heart really falls in love with the Lord in an environment, sometimes you can get easily boxed in to understanding what matters, even if it's things that you're not taught overtly, but you just kind of survey the room on a Sunday morning and you realize kind of, okay, this is what matters. And so some of that, to answer your question, was, concepts of liturgical worship, of maybe Catholic expressions are beautiful, but also like an Anglican or a Presbyterian, they have ways of connecting with the Lord in liturgical ways that we were just not exposed to. There was not like an intentionality on things like on Advent.
It's now time for bed.
Or Lent, high church calendar or church calendar, holidays like that outside of Christmas and Easter were just non-existent. Yeah. So being able to I wouldn't say that anything has changed from what I now disagree with. It's just understanding that there's so much more to ways that I can connect with the Lord than what I was exposed to in that environment at that time.
Yeah. I think thinking about how your career has taken shape, really everything has been preparing you for what you're doing now. Your time in emergency management. I didn't realize the importance of it at the time, but I do realize the importance of it now. Like the ability to get in front of a room full of people you've never seen before and try to hold their attention for 4 to 8 hours, depending on what you're teaching. That was crazy. What a great skill to learn early in your career.
Yeah. And to remove barriers to what they might need, that was a lot of information that we had no ability to dictate what we were teaching back then. Yeah. We were just taught to teach this, but to be able to make it substantive and impactful. And so, and then, just being able, aside from that classroom, being exposed to chaotic situations where, you're around leaders who are kind of going crazy inside too. They're just holding it together. Yeah. Like that's ministry. Yeah. That's ministry. That's a good point. That is very difficult to do. And it's for sure it's ministry.
So your time through Honor Guard, your time as a chaplain now, you have been around just countless heavy situations. How has that impacted you now? I guess being somebody that's there to either show respect or help people through the grieving process? How has that helped you through like the grieving process for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I mean, I don't know. I think that I would be able and I would be more than willing to do the job that I have the opportunity to do now as a chaplain had I not walked through some of the things that I've walked through in life, be it as an enlisted guy, as a deployment, as the things the military puts on you and expects out of you. And so I have a little bit of a grid for that. But bigger than that is I've just experienced loss.
Yeah.
In 2012, I mentioned at the outset, in 2012, we lost my dad and to leukemia. And so, being able to help someone navigate that and see hope through that, it gives you a frame of reference to be able to connect with them and relate to them. At Arlington, we're meeting people that are navigating different loss of different kinds, right? Different ages of people that we're there to honor, up to 30 of them a day that we're doing that with and for. But you're also, while being a human, right, and pastoring them, human to human, you're also in a uniform. And so the Air Force, they have a need from you, and the Air Force has an expectation. And so you're kind of in a middle around all of this pomp and all of this, the band, the flags, the young airmen, all of that, flyovers and everything else. And, but you're able to articulate the gratitude of the country and the Air Force, human to human. And you need to have some emotional intelligence and empathy to be able to do that. And, some of it you can, like, this is not what I will do for the rest of my life. I am very interested to see what else will leverage the same skill sets that I bring to it right now, the way this job does, right?
Yeah.
But it's a unique job, and it helps to be able to show up with some experience, to be able to do everything that I just said, to be able to help people, to be able to help put people at ease, but then be able to help them leave, not just remembering you, because I don't need to remember Andy while they're there. I need to remember how they felt while they were there. Yeah, and that's bigger than me, right? Mm-hmm. And that same sentiment is true outside of Arlington as a chaplain. Like but as a chaplain at Arlington, nobody wears a name tag. None of it is specifically about me. So yeah, I mean, I think the things I've walked through, but specifically the emotional pain that I've walked through with the loss of my dad, is probably the most foundational that helps with what I do now.
Yeah. We lost my dad fall of 2024. And to be honest, that's something that that's still heavy for me today.
Sure.
It's not the same like gut wrenching feeling you have, right when it happens, but it's still something that I know people say this, but like legitimately there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. So that was one of the reasons why, honestly, I started this whole, I don't even know what you call it, just this series of conversations with people. It's just because I've become really interested in, I have my YouTube algorithm taking me down demonic possession and near-death experiences. But now I've just been really interested in just the idea of grief and how it's so, it's just so different for people. You can have a room full of people that are experiencing the same loss, and everybody's going to deal with grief in a different way. You could have the same room of people lose the same person in their life, like a father, mother, sister, brother, and they're all going to deal with it differently. You know what I mean? Depending on who it is. And like we lost people, growing up. My grandmother, I had a couple aunts.
Sure.
Brother-in-law, stuff like that, and but none of them have been as sustained as far as like the grief as my dad. I'm curious, how has it been for you?
No, I mean, and I'm sorry for your loss. That is still fairly recent, but we, I think with my dad, I don't go a day without thinking about him either. And it's,
Yeah.
you know, what's the math on that? 12 years, something like that.
Yeah.
We, and I think, you know, the first year removed, we did, you know, a special thing back home. So we traveled back to have a thing. And then it coincides with the holiday in February when he passes. So there's always kind of a lot of texts bouncing around on that particular day in February with family. But I inherited his truck. And no one in the town that I live in now has a truck. It's just not a thing people have in DC. And so I will, especially on that day, but more frequently than just that day, load my daughter up, who he never had the opportunity to know, put on a playlist songs that, you know, 80s and 90s country that he used to like, and just drive around. Right. And that's just one of the ways that I can honor him. But I also work in a cemetery. I mean, you know, I work in an environment that represents, for some it's sacrifice, for others it's loss, and so you're up front. And I was exposed to a person today, presenting him the flag. He's a veteran himself, and his wife was as well, and they were married for just shy of 50 years. And so I come home after navigating that. And of course I have my wife, and I think about, you know, her and what it would be like to move, to even envision a life with that many years after losing someone, after being with them for that many years. And so I think about my mom, and I think about, you know, my dad. So yeah, I mean, it shows up all the time. I've always been really big, and I'm not sure if I'm unique in this, but just kind of, I kind of take in the environment that I'm around when something happens, especially when something's new. I go into a new room and I'm just looking at all the details. Like it's just kind of always been how I'm hardwired. That office we worked together in Florida. I could today draw you a complete blueprint of the entire office.
100%.
And yeah. For one thing, it was kind of wild, but yeah, I could do that. But anyway, I remember where I was when I got the news my dad died. I was standing in the entrance to Target, and it was a good year and a half, maybe 2 years before I would enter that Target through that door again. I would go out of my way to go into the store a different way, just because of, you know, and yeah, so I agree with you. Like, to echo what you just said, grief is so different, and to me, it's never been. I was lucky enough to be able to have someone kind of speak into that part of my life shortly after losing Dad. You know, that I don't need to set before me the goal of trying to outlive or outrun or outpace my grief. Like it's like anything else that comes my way. Like it can turn from a wound to a scab, but if you keep picking the scab, it's never going to heal. It can become a scab if you let it heal, and then it'll become a scar, but that scar is part of your testimony. And it can be something that, instead of being picked, be pointed to for what the Lord's done, right? And you end up living with that grief and leaning on it for what you need and what you can get out of it, but not trying to pray it away. But I think about Dad like you. I think about my dad all the time.
Yeah, I inherited my dad's. He had an old 1968 Plymouth Valiant, like a little hot rod or whatever, and it's
nice.
It's sitting out in my car. It's not nice, but it's a it's a giant. It's designed to be a drag car, but I haven't brought myself to drive it yet. You know, I know he would want me to. You know, there's something. It just feels weird because it's never going. I don't think it will ever feel like mine. I don't even view it as mine. I kind of view it as like I'm just holding on to it for the family. You know, I'm never gonna get rid of that thing. No matter what. It's gonna stay in the family. That's the intent of the whole thing. But yeah, the whole grief thing is just interesting. Like when I had to officiate my dad's funeral, I didn't know that was going to happen.
Wow.
When I was asked prior to him passing, they were just my stepmom and him were setting up this kind of their funeral arrangements, like as people do, and they asked me if I would do that. Of course, I would do that. It wasn't something I ever expected to be asked, but you're always going to say yes to that.
Sure.
But like going through the process of like writing a eulogy in just a matter of days prior to the funeral stuff was just like, man, that's easily. I thought my retirement speech was the hardest thing that I've ever done as far as public speaking engagement. Delivering my dad's eulogy was not even close. It was so difficult. But like, and I referenced one of C.S. Lewis's quotes in the from A Grief Observed, where it talks about like, grief is a gift. It's a reminder of how much we love someone and how much that person meant to us. And so I don't know if grief. Some people you lose them that grief definitely subsides. I wonder if there's just, and I'm just kind of living this out. If there's just certain key people in your life that just never fades, and that's okay if that's the case. But it's new. It's still new for me. This whole grieving thing with him. So it's just something I find interesting. I don't want to keep you on here for too terrible long. I know you probably got dad stuff to do at the end of the night, but I do want to ask you a question.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm not going to ask your opinion on it because I know that as a commissioned officer, there's certain things there's left and right boundaries as far as what you're going to say. But what I have seen is specifically over like the past couple of weeks, the chaplain corps has been like on like front page news with some changes that Secretary Hegseth has either already implemented or is in the process of implementing. What are some of those changes that are happening?
Yeah, so I mean the two biggest hit the news yesterday. You're right, like it's been in the news a lot, which is not. It's kind of new territory for the chaplain corps.
Yeah, to
really be in any way whatsoever in the news. And good or bad, right? And but the two that he spoke about yesterday specifically were reducing the amount or the faiths, the groupings or the list of faith traditions that a person can identify as from. I think it's 113, if I'm not mistaken, down to about 31, if I'm not mistaken. And so that narrows down. That really, on the immediate side, doesn't necessarily impact a lot of what chaplains do on the daily, right? Some of the other changes will. Another change that has been it's been in the process of being rolled out since about the week after the inauguration was the presence of facial hair and shaving waivers, because most of those were issued under the guise of religious accommodation. And so when COVID happened, that became a big route that the requests for exemptions to the vaccination were they were being vetted by chaplains with an individual member. The shaving waivers is the same, certainly not as many as they were having to navigate back with the COVID vaccine, but they were if people had a religious conviction or belief or whatever about wearing a beard, then they'll send them to the chaplain. And that has that's kind of been clamped down on even before it reaches the chaplain. So we've kind of that's not so much a battle for me at Arlington, but for the chaplains at an individual base it is. And then the most recent one, as of yesterday, was the decision. And this is all still, again, it's the day after. But the presence of our rank is going to go away on our uniforms. So instead of wearing, like right now, I'm an Otharima captain. I wear on my hat, I can wear my rank or a cross. On mine, I wear a cross, but it's treated like rank, meaning it's saluted. And then on my chest, on the uniform we currently wear is a rank. Those will be replaced with the religious emblem of that particular chaplain. And then with service dress, I'm not, because I wear a ceremonial uniform, which is kind of a beefed up version of service dress. We wear a rank, so that apparently is going to go away. But that we haven't received any guidance on how or when. It's just kind of been stand by for the guidance on it. So yeah, I mean those are some biggies. I think the rank is probably the one that everybody's talking about the most because it's the most kind of lurch change.
What's the why behind it? What's the push for the rank removal?
So I'll say this: like I'm not. I'll explain the why, and I think everybody again is still wrapping their head around it. But I'm not opposed to the kind of the heart behind what I'm about to say. But if you watch the videos with Secretary Hegseth, he kind of delves into some of the history of the Chaplain Corps and the bigger why. But essentially, we are the only we are the only individuals, the only professional service available to an airman or any member or their family that brings into a conversation 100% confidentiality, meaning I'm bound by the UCMJ to not disclose what it is you've shared with me, right? It's not that I'm just a good guy and can keep your secrets. It's part of my oath is to do that. And so, but a hurdle for some, especially junior enlisted airmen, a hurdle to connecting with 03 or more specifically, more senior ranking chaplains is the presence of their rank. It's the reason that you may go into certain professional development classes and they put you in civilian clothes so that you don't all sit around putting more weight behind the senior chaplain's voice than the junior chaplain's voice. You're all on equal. So the decision was made to do this. And I'm all for, to be completely transparent. I'm not saying this just because I'm in the ranks. Like I'm all for removing barriers to connecting with the chaplain, either where they place us, how they leverage us on a base. Like I'm all for being as creative as possible. And if it's, and so, but you have to kind of run that play for some time, see if it works, right?
Yeah.
That's yet to be determined. I think some of my initial thoughts on beyond what I just said is, we are a career field of highly educated professionals that are expected to have some professional experience in ministry before we commission. So what that does is that can make a person highly proficient as a pastor, but then they're kind of always behind the curve a little bit as an officer. Mm-hmm. And that's, I'm sure you've met chaplains who kind of fit that description. And so, I mean, I'm pretty diplomatic about what I'm trying to say, but it's the reality. And my concern would just be, you can't avoid the perception that something's being taken away, even if it isn't. Like, it's not like I'm all of a sudden not a captain anymore. I'm still an 03. But if we're in an organization that values rank, it's the military. So if we all of a sudden are kind of questioning, am I captain? Am I supposed to be happy when I promote to major? Like, I don't really know how to engage with my rank. What incentive does that young chaplain still have to continue to work on his officership and become a good officer? The short answer would be he should be motivated to serve better the organization that's paying him and that he's called to serve. But I do kind of wonder if that's going to be a little bit of a hurdle for what we're talking about. But that's the big things that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, in the special warfare community, over the past probably 5 or 6 years or so, there has definitely been more emphasis placed on just the mental health of the operator and stuff. And so it's not uncommon in the line of work that I was in prior to this, for there to be either an embedded chaplain at the unit or one that is definitely much more integrated into the day-to-day than the normal service member probably experiences interacts with their chaplain. And that's definitely a good thing. But even so, I can't say that I ever witnessed the chaplain being that that resource being used as often as it probably could or should. I've got my own opinions on it, but I think more so than even just the rank, the thing that I've noticed, but besides you, is there are a lot of, there's no other way to say it. They're very old a lot of times, significantly older, and so they'll like show up to the unit like what I was doing and try to rub elbows with the guys, but you're like pushing like mid to like almost 60. It just seems really disingenuous, and it comes off as kind of corny, where I wonder how much benefit there would be, or even if there is an effort to really try to bring in some like younger talent, that's easier to connect with kind of the demographic of the people that are generally in the service. I do think there's probably some goodness. There's probably is some goodness to having somebody that's a little bit more mature, but not old.
No. And I would say like the doctors and the lawyers are direct commissions like chaplains are, and they have the same issue. The difference is that no one is expecting a cardiologist in the Air Force who's an 06 to go rub elbows with special warfare operators be able to influence their spiritual health. You need that doctor to be a killer cardiologist. That's what you need him to do, and focus on that. You don't care about how awkward he is to engage with. You don't care about any of that. You need him to be able to do heart stuff.
Heck, the more awkward, the better. They're probably smarter, right?
Right, exactly. Chaplains is a totally different ballgame because it's all this soft skills, feels, engagement, being able to read a room. You wear captain for almost a decade, and then you've come in with about 12 to 15 years of school, some more. And then, so it's not unheard of to be, by the time you make the major lieutenant colonel, depending on how long you've served, to be that old. So then you're like, okay, that someone upstream needs to be smarter about what room they put that person in. Because you just highlighted one of the many the benefits to the chaplain corps' change in strategy that they navigated probably 5 to 10 years ago, which was trying to, it might not be quite that long, but it's been close to it. If not 6 years ago, they went to a model that took us out of the chapel and tried to put us in as close as we could be, whether it was what you experienced or even on the flight line with maintainers and having an office, and that's where you go to work every day. So, but some of the moves that we're talking about that have been in the news are, and the senior leadership, specifically Secretary Hexeth, is very overt about kind of removing the stigma of being able to focus on spiritual health. I'm all for mental wellness. I'm all for I'm all for that, all of that stuff. But we went to seminary and were educated and hired to be providers of spiritual care, and to be able to speak with a little bit less concern for quite frankly just having to watch our words so much and pad our words that we end up kind of losing our identity and our value in a meeting or in a room or with all those people that you were describing. So he's trying to lower just remove some of the hurdles to that. It's like if you are there to be a spiritual influence, then be a spiritual influence. And I don't disagree with that. I think, it's a big organization, so you kind of have to be careful how much latitude you give somebody, but with anything. But I don't disagree with removing the kind of expectation that we're supposed to be life coaches or mental health coaches or something like that. Like I'm all for that stuff, but it is nice, and it will be nice just to be able. I'm a chaplain who does funerals, and I'm invited there by the family, so I never shy away from talking about Christ, from sharing scripture. They've invited me there. I navigate that very different than I would at, if I had been your invocation for your retirement ceremony, you would have invited me there, and I would have asked you what you wanted me to say.
Yeah.
But if you go to an official ceremony, you have to watch you have to be mindful of the space. And that's very different than a pastor at a local church.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, man, like there are so many people that go through life who do things. They go from like job to job, and they ask themselves like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? People are constantly looking for like their purpose and everything. I think it is evident, obviously, not only to you, but I think to everybody else who knows you or has known you, that dude, you are right where you're supposed to be. You like the demeanor, the desire, all of those things. It's just even though it's something that I know that it's not in my wheelhouse at all. It's something that I truly admire. That like, dude, you found it, and you're absolutely crushing it, dude. It's just really, really cool to see.
That means a lot, man. It really does. Like we've known each other for a long time, and I appreciate. That means a lot. You saying something like that. So thank you.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap this thing up?
No, man. I'm honored that you would ask, especially the heart behind you wanting to have these conversations and me being thought of to be one of them just means the world. I would. Sorry we had to delay it a week and a few days, but I'm glad we were able to make it happen. And if you take nothing away from watching us talk and reminisce and talk about what God's up to in our life, just remember the value of friendship and community, because it is part of what's going to get you where you want to go in life. So make those friendships and be a good one. If you want some in your life, you want a good friend in your life, be a good friend to somebody else. And I'm grateful for that in mine, for sure.
Yeah, that's good, man. Well, hey, don't go anywhere. I'm going to end the stream. It was so good to talk to you again.
You too, brother. Thank you.